He was a businessman working in one of America's most lucrative industries. This industry was shaped not by free market competition, but by government policies. Not only was alcohol prohibited, but it created a market, eliminating legal competition and leaving the supply chain open to those who dared to enter the space. This market transformed ordinary criminals into a group of the wealthy, corrupted cities, and exposed one of the foundations of the economy. If those who make the laws ignore the demand, someone else will. The 18th Amendment, enacted in 1920, which prohibited the production, sale, and transportation of alcohol, was touted as a moral campaign by the United States government. Alcohol was presented as the source of crime, poverty, and domestic violence. Eliminated so that society could purify itself. But this was a political promise, not an economic analysis. The demand for alcohol didn't disappear overnight. In fact, it increased in many places. And if there's demand when there's no legal sale, prices rise. Is this a loophole? The line between law and reality was the arena where Al Capone built his empire. Capone was born in Brooklyn in 1899 to a poor Italian immigrant family. In his early 20s, he had entered the world of organized crime. But the Prohibition era wasn't just a city of opportunity, it was the center of an economic transformation in the underworld. Alcohol was no longer just a bad habit, but a new value. And Capone, with his organizational skills, connections, and ruthlessness, was ideally positioned to dominate this space. His operation was more than just a simple gang selling bottles in the backstreets, it was a masterfully planned, complex operation. He managed beer and liquor production facilities, liquor import routes, and distribution systems. He delivered the product to secret liquor establishments, underground bars disguised as soda shops, nightclubs, or backrooms, to hundreds of people who paid for a constant supply. His organization was making approximately $100 million a year in the 1920s. Adjusted for inflation, this figure is roughly equivalent to $1.5 billion in today's value. Capone wasn't just making money. He was also cleverly managing his earnings. Profits from bootleg liquor sales were illegal, but Capone understood the importance of making things appear legitimate. He invested in restaurants, nightclubs, and other cash-driven businesses that concealed his earnings and gave his criminal empire a certain image in society. Bribery provided him with security. Politicians turned a blind eye. In a city where prohibition had plunged half the population into darkness, Capone wasn't just an outlaw. He was recognized as an employer, a customer, and in some circles, a local hero. The secret to his success wasn't tea, while he knew how to use force when necessary, the real key was risk management. He understood the opportunities and weaknesses that prohibition presented him with. His profit came from the product being illegal. The moment the product became legal again, his profit margins would end. Therefore, he diversified his businesses. Gambling, prostitution, and other illegal activities became part of his portfolio. But alcohol remained economically privileged. What made it so powerful was this: before prohibition, alcohol was a product with low profit margins. Beer was cheap, wine was accessible, and whiskey was sold at reasonable prices. But after prohibition, every risk in the supply chain led to a price increase. Bribes to the police, payments to drivers, various fees to intermediaries. The price of alcohol rose, and consumers still accepted that price. Demand was inelastic. Alcohol was part of socio-cultural life. And those who could meet that demand had a product that had met with a government-created shortage. Capone realized that those who made the law failed to see. Prohibition wasn't preventing crime. On the contrary, it was turning it into an industry. Capone's empire succeeded because it was structured like a corporation, without legal obstacles. The business model encompassed all the elements a modern enterprise needed: vertical integration, market dominance, supply chain security, brand reputation, and a unique distribution network. The economic situation was extraordinary because the market was artificially constrained. Every beer bottle and every whiskey bottle was considered high quality not because of quality, but because of the risk involved. But prohibition also created another problem, the financial structure of corruption. Capone's money didn't just go to criminal organizations. Police officers, judges, local administrators, and even federal agents got a share of it. Corruption wasn't a side effect, it was the system itself. When the legal system becomes dependent on illicit money, practices can never truly be lawful. Everything had become a matter of price. By the late 1920s, Capone's influence had spread so far that Chicago politics and organized crime had become almost indistinguishable. Companies either succeeded or failed thanks to their connections with criminal organizations. Rival gangs attempted to infiltrate distribution areas, leading to conflicts such as the infamous Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929. Violence was the apparent aspect of the empire, but not its core element. The core element was its financial situation, and Capone's financial control was what made him untouchable for so long. But power is always vulnerable to policy changes. By the early 1930s, public opinion was shifting. The Great Depression had impacted political dynamics. The tax revenue from legal alcohol sales had become far more attractive than the moral justifications for prohibition. And for the federal government, Capone's status as a national symbol of lawlessness made him a target. They failed to convict him on charges of bootleg alcohol trade. His empire was remarkably well protected, and his operations were very solid. But they could act on another issue, taxes. In 1931, the government convicted Capone of income tax evasion and sent him to 11 years in federal prison. His downfall wasn't due to a major conflict or defeating a rival gang. It was simply bureaucratic processes. In 1933, prohibition was lifted. The market that had made Capone a millionaire suddenly disappeared. Legal breweries and liquor factories reopened. Prices returned to normal. The liquor trade had transformed from a black market monopoly into a regulated industry. And so, one of the largest criminal economies in American history became a taxable revenue stream. There's a lesson to be learned here. Prohibition didn't fail because crime was too powerful. It failed because of the power of the economy. Demand ignored the law, supply adapted, and profits were enormous. The mechanics haven't changed in the present day. Let's consider the legalization of marijuana. For a long time, marijuana created a black market worth billions of dollars. The implementation never eliminated this situation. It only put money in the hands of those willing to take risks. Now, as legalization increases, profits are shifting to corporations, taxes are going to governments, and the market is consolidating as a whole. The economy has the same dynamics as with prohibition, only the product is different. Or let's look at cryptocurrencies. For years, they existed outside the traditional financial system, in regulatory uncertainty. Early adopters had an attractive effect on those who took risks and seized opportunities. Implementing organizations lagged behind. Profits were quite high. But as regulations tighten, the sector consolidates, corporate players step in, and the initial large profit margins shrink. A similar structure can be seen in sectors shaped by sanctions, energy policy, and environmental regulations. When governments restrict or control supply, they don't destroy markets. They redirect them. Whether it's oil sanctions, export barriers on rare earth metals, or environmental regulations related to carbon credits, someone will always seize the opportunity. Profit lies in understanding the difference between law and demand. This is the most important lesson to be learned from Capone's story. It's not about crime, it's about the intersection of law, money, and opportunity. Capone's legendary success was based on identifying and exploiting an inefficiency in the structure. That is, recognizing a market constrained by policies. You don't need to run a criminal empire to understand that these inefficiencies still exist. They're everywhere. And those who can see them early, whether legally or illegally, profit. So what's the lesson in modern finance? First, markets can never be completely free. Policy, regulation, and enforcement shape markets. When these elements change, money moves. Understanding these changes is a form of financial education. Second, scarcity creates opportunity. This scarcity can be natural or artificial, affecting prices, demand, and profit margins. Seeing artificial scarcity created by law, licensing, and regulation is how smart players outperform their competitors. Third, policy-driven markets are volatile. Just as prohibition ended overnight, today's lucrative restrictions can end abruptly. If your wealth is entirely based on a legal loophole, that wealth is not long-lasting. Diversification is key to survival. Capone's empire grew by understanding its environment better than anyone else. It collapsed when that environment changed and it couldn't adapt quickly. The same is true for every investor, entrepreneur, and policymaker today. Prohibition ended. Capone went to jail. But the cycle of scarcity and profit never stopped. It's still going on. In marijuana, cryptocurrencies, commodities, and every sector where demand legally exceeds supply. History doesn't always repeat itself. But if you don't understand that, it can still affect you. If this has given you a new perspective, you might consider subscribing. History holds questions within itself. Let me show you where to focus.